Ever get that, like, creepy feeling when you walk into an old building? Like, the walls are just, like, holding their breath,
Oh, absolutely.
waiting to tell you some secret. Well, today we're diving into a place that's packed full of those secrets. Eastern State Penitentiary.
Eastern State Penitentiary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're not talking about just some, abandoned prison. This place was meant to be like the next level of punishment.
Yeah.
They said they wanted to, encourage penitence.
Right.
But come on, solitary confinement in this huge castle-like prison.
It sounds like something straight out of a scary movie.
Totally, like a gothic horror story.
Totally. It was a radical experiment for its time. Think about it. Philadelphia,
Yeah.
1829. This massive, imposing prison opens,
Wow.
and they have this whole new system, the separate system,
Yeah.
or what we call today solitary confinement.
So no chatting with your cellmate.
Nope. Total isolation. We're talking hooded walks between cells, guards wearing felt shoes to be quiet. Absolute silence. They thought that if they kept the prisoners silent,
Wow.
it would force them to think about what they did wrong.
So kind of make the punishment as much mental as physical.
Exactly.
Huh. That's wild. So, like, how is it different from other prisons, though?
Well, get this. Each cell had its own toilet and heating.
Back then.
Yeah. Back in the 1800s, that was luxury. I mean, even the White House didn't have those things back then.
I guess that's true.
So was it humane? Or was it just cruel?
Right. Like, on one hand, you have your own space.
Right.
But on the other hand, you're completely alone.
It's a question that people have been debating for centuries. Even Charles Dickens.
No way. Really?
Yeah. He visited in 1842 and was horrified.
Wow.
He said it was, and I quote, immeasurably worse than any torture of the body.
And that's coming from the guy who wrote Oliver Twist.
Exactly.
So if Dickens thinks it's bad, it was really bad.
Yeah.
So did it work?
Did what work?
I mean, the whole solitary thing, did it make the prisoners, regret their crimes?
Well, that's the big question. The system didn't last.
Yeah.
Overcrowding.
Makes sense.
They just had too many inmates. So they couldn't really keep them all isolated.
So much for revolutionary reform, huh?
Right.
But I want to talk about the building itself for a sec. This place, it wasn't just, a place to hold prisoners. It was designed to, like, control them.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. The architecture itself was part of the punishment.
How so?
So the prison is shaped like a giant wheel with 7 corridors going out from the center.
Like spokes on a wheel?
Yeah. They got the idea from this concept called the panopticon. The idea was that guards could see into every cell from a central spot.
So the prisoners always felt like they were being watched.
Exactly.
And get this, they even put skylights in each cell and called them the Eye of God.
Talk about a constant reminder that you're being watched.
That's pretty creepy.
Right. But there's something else interesting about the architecture. So with all those long corridors and hard surfaces, sound travels like crazy.
Oh, so it's like an echo chamber.
Pretty much. You can hear a whisper from really far away.
I bet that makes for some spooky stories.
It definitely does. Eastern State is full of them. But before we get into all that, let's meet some of the, well, let's just say more colorful characters who spend time there.
All right. Let's hear about the Rogues Gallery.
Yeah.
Anyone I might recognize.
Oh, I think you'll recognize this name. Al Capone,
Wait, Scarface? Really?
the one and only.
What was his cell like? I can't imagine him roughing it.
Well, compared to everyone else, he lived like a king. Furniture, oil paintings,
Real.
even a radio.
A radio. Seriously. I thought this place was all about suffering.
Right. There are rumors that, Capone used his connections and maybe some money.
Bribe.
Yeah, to get special treatment.
Makes sense. So any other big names?
Oh, yeah. How about Willie Sutton?
Willie Sutton.
Yeah. He pulled off one of the most daring escapes in prison history.
What did he do?
So in 1945, Sutton and 11 other inmates, they dug a 97-foot tunnel.
97 feet? Are you serious?
Yeah. Longer than a bowling lane. And they did it all without anyone noticing.
Wow. Talk about dedication.
Wow.
Did they find the tunnel?
Oh, they found it. And get this, they found over 30 other tunnels that were never finished.
Wow. That's crazy. Can you imagine how much digging that must have been?
It's mind-boggling.
It really is. But okay, this might be a weird question, but didn't you mention something about a dog being locked up in Eastern
Oh,
State?
yeah, Pep the dog.
Pep the dog.
A black lab,
Okay.
sentenced to life in prison.
Wait, what? Why?
Supposedly, he killed the governor's cat.
You're kidding, right?
I know, it sounds crazy. But some people say he was actually a therapy dog for the inmates.
Oh, okay.
And the whole cat killing thing was a PR stunt.
A PR stunt for a prison. That's a new one.
Right.
But I guess it's those kinds of stories that make Eastern State so interesting. It's like a mix of truth and legend.
Exactly. It's a place where history and mystery come together.
And speaking of mystery, I think what really draws people to Eastern State is its reputation.
It's haunted.
Yeah. And that's what we'll be exploring next. Eastern State is considered one of the most haunted prisons in America.
And we're going to find out why. Welcome back.
To Eastern State Penitentiary.
Where history and
It's
hauntings
going
are...
to go hand in hand.
Yeah.
So we've talked about like the architecture, the inmates,
Yeah.
the whole vibe. But now let's get to like the really juicy stuff.
The ghosts.
Yeah. Eastern State is supposed to be like one of the most haunted prisons in America. What makes it such a...
A paranormal hotspot.
yeah, like why is it so haunted?
You know, it's almost like all the years of suffering,
Right.
all those stories,
Yeah.
they've like soaked into the walls.
It's true. I mean, we talked about how the building itself was designed to control people.
With the Tanopticon.
Right. And the Eye of God skylights and all that.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not just the prisoners who were...
Being watched.
yeah.
Ooh, that's
Yeah.
creepy.
It is. And don't forget, like, the history here is really dark.
Oh, absolutely.
We're talking about, like, decades of solitary confinement.
Mental breakdowns, deaths.
Yeah. That kind of energy, I mean, it doesn't just disappear, right?
No, it sticks around.
Yeah, it lingers.
Oh, lingers.
So what kind of, like, paranormal stuff are we talking about here? Is it just like, cold spots?
And creaky doors.
Yeah, or is it more than that?
Oh, it's way more than that. Disembodied voices,
Oh, we can't.
shadowy figures,
Lurking.
lurking in the cells,
Mm-hmm.
even full-bodied apparitions.
Wait, like you can actually see them?
Some people say they have, yeah. There's this one story about a figure that just stands in the hallways,
Really?
totally still.
Wow.
But then when you get close, it vanishes.
Oh, that's creepy.
And there are stories of a dark figure on top of one of the guard towers.
Oh, wow. We were talking about how sound travels so well in this place because of the architecture. I mean, could some of this stuff just be like people hearing things and then their imagination takes over?
That's definitely possible. And there could be other scientific reasons, too.
Like what?
Well, electromagnetic fields can cause weird sensations, even hallucinations.
That's interesting. But what about those full-bodied apparitions? It's hard to explain those away with science.
You're right. And that's where things get really interesting.
Okay, let's hear it.
Well, one theory is that all the emotional energy from the prison's history...
all the suffering and stuff.
Yeah, it's like imprinted itself on the location.
Huh. So it's almost like the building itself is haunted.
Exactly. And that energy can, make weird things happen.
That makes sense.
Oh.
Any other theories?
Oh, yeah. Another theory is that the spirits of the people who died there are drawn back to it.
Like they're still connected to the prison somehow.
Yeah. Maybe they're trying to communicate, or maybe they can't leave.
That's kind of sad, actually,
It is.
to be stuck in a place like that.
But there's another theory, too. It's a little more out there.
Okay, what is it?
Some people think that certain places, especially where there's been a lot of trauma and death, they can act as portals.
Portals.
Gateways to other dimensions.
Like a door to the spirit world.
Exactly. And if that's true, then Eastern State, with all its history, well...
It could be one of those places.
It could.
Wow, I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it.
You said earlier you wondered if we were being watched.
Yeah.
Well, if there are portals here,
Oh.
who knows what could be watching us back.
Okay, now I'm officially freaked out. Let's talk about something a little less scary. You mentioned that Eastern State is a museum now, right?
Yeah, it is.
What's it like to actually visit?
Well, be prepared to step back in time. Like the second you walk through the gates,
Yeah.
it's like a different world.
Like a time capsule.
Yeah, the cell blocks, the corridors, the bars.
Yeah.
It's beautiful and creepy at the same time.
I can see that. And what about the tours?
They have all kinds. During the day, they have historical tours. Okay.
They talk about the Pennsylvania system,
Yeah.
famous escapes.
So you can learn about Al Capone's fancy cell
Oh, yeah.
and Willie Sutton's tunnel.
They even have, like, special events. Like on Bastille Day, they throw tasty cakes from the towers.
They throw what?
Tootsie cakes?
From the towers. That's amazing.
It's a fun tradition. And, of course, there are the Halloween events.
Oh, yeah, those are famous. I heard they turn the whole prison into a haunted house.
They do. It's called Halloween Nights.
Uh-huh.
And it's a really big deal Tons of people come to walk through the prison and get spooked.
I bet that's pretty intense, especially knowing the history.
It is, but even if you're not into, like, the paranormal stuff, Eastern State is still worth visiting. It's a part of history.
Yeah, you're right. And it really makes you think about how we punish people. The
Uh,
Pennsylvania system, I mean, it was innovative.
For its time.
Yeah, but it didn't work. It
Yeah.
was just too harsh.
It's a good reminder that we need to keep thinking about how we do criminal justice. We need to be smarter about it. Find ways to help people instead of just locking them up.
We want to break the cycle of crime, not make it worse.
Exactly. It's amazing to me how a place like Eastern State can make us think about all that.
It's not just about the past.
Yeah.
It's about the future, too.
It is. And unfortunately, we were running out of time for this part of our deep dive.
But there's still so much more to talk about.
We'll have to pick this up in the next part. Okay, so we're back.
Back at Eastern State.
Yeah, for the final part of our deep dive into this, well, kind of creepy place.
It is creepy, but also fascinating.
We've covered a lot,
We have.
the history, the hauntings.
Right.
But I'm curious, like, for someone listening, what's it actually like to visit Eastern State today? Like, if I wanted to go check it out, what should I expect?
Well, first of all, get ready for a total time warp.
Really?
Seriously, as soon as you walk through those gates.
Like the main entrance?
Yeah, it's like you've stepped into another world.
Like back in time.
Yeah. And a little bit like into a spooky movie.
I could see that.
The cell blocks, the corridors, those rusty bars.
It sounds kind of eerie, but also kind of beautiful.
That's Eastern State for you.
So what about the tours?
Oh, they have a bunch of options.
Okay.
During the day, they've got historical tours. You
Right.
can learn about, the Pennsylvania system.
All of the solitary confinement stuff.
Yeah, and the famous escapes.
So like Al Capone's tricked out cell
Yep.
and Willie Sutton's tunnel?
They even do special events throughout the year.
Like what?
Well, on Bastille Day,
Bastille Day.
yeah, they actually throw tasty cakes from the towers.
They throw what?
Tasty cakes, those little snack cakes?
No way. Really?
Yeah, it's this, quirky tradition.
That's hilarious. I love it.
It's a lot of fun. And of course, you can't forget Halloween.
Oh, yeah. The Halloween events are, like, famous.
They are.
I've heard they turn the whole prison into a giant haunted house.
It's called Halloween Nights. It's a huge thing. People come from all over to wander around and get scared.
I bet. Knowing the history, that must be pretty intense.
It is. But even if you're not into the whole, Halloween scare thing,
Yeah.
Eastern State's still worth a visit. It's a real piece of history.
And it makes you think about how we treat people who commit crimes.
Right. The Pennsylvania system, even though it was a new idea,
Yeah.
it didn't work.
It was too cruel.
Exactly. It reminds us that we have to keep looking for better ways to deal with crime.
Find solutions that actually work.
Rehabilitate people instead of just punishing them.
Yeah, that's the goal, right? To break the cycle, not make it worse.
Absolutely.
It's amazing how a place like Eastern State can spark those kinds of conversations.
It really is.
It's not just a spooky old prison. It's like a reminder of what we've learned and how we can do better.
Well, sadly, that's all the time we have for our deep dive into Eastern State Penitentiary.
But we hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah, tried to give you a taste of this. Well,
Unique place.
yeah, it's definitely unique.
And if you're ever in Philly, you should check it out.
Absolutely.
Just be prepared for a pretty intense experience.
And maybe a ghostly encounter.
Yeah, you never know.
If you like this deep dive, make sure to follow or subscribe to Forbidden Unveiled.
We've got more mysteries to explore.
And as always, thanks for listening.